morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that I really don't bring into my channel too often anymore, but I think we have to discuss this whole Mueller report and how everything's been playing out over the last week. A lot of people that first subscribed to my channel did so because of my political analysis, so I'm going to offer that to these guys today because I think it's a good time for me to offer my opinion and basically give you guys my breakdown on how I think things played out from the very beginning. And I've been saying this from day one, but I honestly feel as though Mueller was working with Donald Trump from the very beginning. A lot of people seem to overlook the coincidence that Mueller happened to have a meeting with Donald Trump shortly before the FBI director was appointed. Now, everybody thought that this was because Mueller wanted that position for himself. However, this would have been impossible, seeing as Mueller already served his max 10 years as FBI director. Now, Mueller was tied to a lot of nefarious activities in his time as FBI director, as far as being involved in the whole Whitey Bulger conspiracy and basically letting Whitey Bulger get away with some of the most horrific organized crime in the Boston area, while at the same time using him as an informant to take down all the other criminal enterprises in the area. Now, Mueller was more or less the man at the top when all of this was going down. Mueller was also directly tied to the Uranium One scandal. Now, basically, during the Uranium One scandal, the Clintons managed to arrange a transfer of 70% of our uranium reserves over to Russia. Now, this was approved by Congress, and on top of that, Mueller was the man who actually hand-delivered 1 gram of enriched uranium as a sample to Russia via briefcase on a plane. So Mueller knows where the bodies are buried when it comes to dealing with the Clintons. And as far as the mainstream media is concerned, they made the same mistake with James Comey, okay? Only it happened in reverse, okay? So with James Comey, they absolutely tried to castrate him prior to Donald Trump coming into office because of what he did with the Hillary Clinton investigation, as far as bringing the email investigation back into the spotlight shortly before the election was held again with Donald and Hillary, okay? And that basically made him Democrats' enemy 101. Now, as soon as Donald Trump took power, or took office, even beforehand, James Comey was also at the center of another huge investigation, which involved FISA warrants being obtained on Donald Trump with a dossier that was paid for and delivered by none other than Hillary Clinton and John McCain. Now, this all is very important to realize because these are the same players that were involved in both Uranium One, and they were also involved in 9/11, which is another area that Mueller was deeply tied to because, again, he was the man at the top when all of this went down. So you have to ask yourself this question. When Donald Trump and Mueller met, what did Donald Trump know prior to meeting Mueller? Now, according to popular conspiracy theory, Donald Trump was handpicked by a certain group of people who would be considered white hats, okay? And they basically told Donald Trump, this is our last chance. If Hillary Clinton becomes president, we have no other choice but to do things with a violent motivation, okay? There's no coming back from that. Once she assumes power, we have to strike with everything we have, okay? Now, you have to realize, during Obama's administration, the government wanted to set up no-fly zones in Syria by direct order of Obama himself. And Obama was faced with a situation not many presidents are ever faced with. The military generals that were in charge of the operations in that area absolutely refused to obey Obama's orders because they knew if they did so, it would lead to World War III. Okay? And disaster was averted there. Now, if Hillary Clinton would have been elected, she would have pushed on all fronts, and there is no doubt that we would have gotten ourselves into a situation that simply saying, no, I'm not going to do this is going to get us out of. So by having Donald Trump run for president, you offer at least a 4-year reprieve, if not an 8-year reprieve, in order to righten the ship. And I think this is what we're in the process of witnessing. And we're at a very interesting crossroads in this whole process, because now, all of a sudden, this man that the Democrats have held up on a pedestal because he's been doing their dirty work and carrying their water for 2 years, or so the Democrats have thought the whole time, all of a sudden they realize that Mueller isn't going to come out and say what they wanted him to, just like Comey didn't come out and do what they wanted him to in the long run, okay? And you have to realize there's going to be a bunch of discovery when it comes to people that Robert Mueller has investigated, such as Jerome Corsi and Roger Stone. There's a reason these men are biting the bullet. The same with General Flynn. General Flynn's another man who knows where all the bodies are buried just because of his situation and where he's been. There's a reason that the Democrats have targeted these people, my friends. You don't get targeted by that kind of organization unless you have dirt that'll do them damage. Now, the Democrats put everything on the table in an all-in situation with no cards in their hand, and they never hit anything on the river, the flop. Never. Didn't hit a damn thing. So now they're sitting there with absolutely no hand and all their chips in the fucking pot. And that's the reason you've seen them take one extreme move after another, because they know that there is no way out. So what happens when Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, all these people, Manafort already went before he sold out. What happens when Jerome Corsi, Roger Stone, General Flynn, and all these guys get their day in court is that there's going to be discovery. And what happens at that point is there's going to be a whole bunch of dirt from the past brought out onto the table. And this is exactly why you don't see Flynn taking back his plea. You don't see him. He wants to go in front of the court and he wants to go in front of the grand jury and be able to get his side of the story out there. And the information that he has is going to drag Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, all these evil bastards that we know are out there doing horrific things beyond imagination to light, okay? And on top of that, you're going to end up seeing a precedent set, especially with Manafort going to jail for 42 months. Prison. So what happens is, with him going to prison, okay, for 42 months, you have to consider what that means. That's 8 years, okay? And if you look at the crimes and the statutes that he was charged on, it's comparable to Al Capone as far as racketeering and what Al Capone was actually charged with. However, there's a difference between Capone and Manafort. Manafort actually did what he was charged with doing as far as racketeering and the white-collar crimes that he did. However, if you look at somebody like Capone, who only got 11 years in prison, as opposed to Manafort, who got 8, Al Capone was actually guilty of a lot of other things that were a lot more nefarious than he actually got convicted for, okay? So you have to put in comparison, that's a harsh sentence for Manafort, considering that he didn't do anything near what Capone did. But you have to realize, because this is Donald Trump's man, this is Donald Trump's guy. It's not like it's a guy from the Democrats, from their inner circle, right? So what this does is it sets a precedent that anybody who has gone before Congress and lied, or anybody that's committed any of the process crimes or white-collar crimes that Manafort has committed, is fair game. Think about that for a moment when you consider what I just told you about discovery. If you look at everything that's been involved with the Hillary Clinton Foundation and how the Hillary Clinton Foundation gets dragged into the equation considering the email scandal, and the fact that you have a simultaneous investigation going on by a prosecutor out of Utah who just so happens to have access to all the NSA metadata because of where his jurisdiction gives him access to look into, you have to realize that this may very well be a long game to set Hillary Clinton and that foundation up for prosecution. Now you have to realize these people are never going to get perp walked for any of these crimes of adrenochrome or anything like this. As much as we know that stuff is going on and we know it's sheer fucking evil, and we know people like me and you are smart enough to realize that there's a bigger spiritual battle going on. But as for the mainstream public, do you really think you're going to be able to prance Hillary Clinton or John Podesta in front of the world and charge them for crimes against humanity, including what they've done to children in Epstein Island and all that garbage? The mainstream public ain't ready for that, my friends. They ain't ready for it. But everything that we've seen up until this point has set us up for the precedent that has been set. And with Donald Trump getting exonerated, you have to realize the entire attention of the public is going to need somewhere to go. Because for the last 2 years, they've been living inside of the greatest production ever produced. And they need something that's going to fill that void. Do you think for one moment somebody who managed to survive all of this persecution, survive 2 years of the FBI digging into every facet of their existence, doesn't have a plan as far as controlling the narrative after everything is said and done? Just look at the way the mainstream media is trying to do damage control. Look at how the Democrats are going to use their position in the House to launch investigation after investigation after investigation, looking into everything Donald Trump has ever done. Right after the FBI has already wasted millions and millions of dollars looking into it. And the thing you have to realize on top of that is it's not like Donald Trump had friendly people looking into what he was doing. Just look at the people that Robert Mueller hired. However, it's very interesting when you look at the people Robert Mueller hired. What kind of background check do you suppose you have to submit in order to work for Robert Mueller on that investigation? How much digging is Robert Mueller and whoever approves that appointment, what kind of digging do you think they're going to do into your life and your connections, both personally and politically? I bet you it's going to be substantial digging. Now look at some of the claims launched against some of these people as far as their donations to the Hillary Clinton Foundation, as well as their ties to the Hillary Clinton Foundation, as far as some of the things that they've been tied to within the FBI and their inner workings and personal relationships on the Hill, so forth and so on. Does it strike you as interesting that Robert Mueller would surround himself with people who are supposedly Donald Trump's enemy and give them access to everything Donald Trump has ever done? I think that this is a giant bait and switch. I think when Donald Trump sat down with Robert Mueller, he gave Mueller a choice. You have to realize Donald Trump has intelligence. Better intelligence than you or I would ever give him credit for, because he's not getting it from the government agencies that are trying to deceive him. He's not. He also has his own security detail, and many people don't realize that either. Contracted mercenaries who are there protecting him, and it's been that way since day one. It's not just the Secret Service. It's a different story for a different time. However, Donald Trump had information about Mueller before Mueller sat down with him, and he gave Mueller the opportunity to save his own ass. You go out and do your job. Do your job however you want to do it. I know that I'm fucking innocent, but if you try to deceive me for one moment, you're fucked. And on top of that, we're using all of this to set a precedent to reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton. And that's exactly what was done with the prosecutor out in Utah. There's a database there for the NSA that gives them access to all of the metadata. And you have to look at this with open eyes, because it pertains heavily to what went on with Lisa Page, who coincidentally came out a week and a half ago and just straight up admitted in papers that were released by the DOJ that this entire collusion story was nothing more than a firewall set up between her and her lover, Stroke, there. And on top of that, it solidifies that everything that was used to launch the FISA warrants and investigation into Donald Trump was a conspiracy by none other than the Democrats and the Hillary Clinton Foundation, along with the help of no-name McCain. It's no coincidence, my friends, that Robert Mueller, who has close ties to all of these people, met with Donald Trump. And it's no coincidence 2 years later, with just enough time to actually do something before the elections, Mueller gets done with his report and unties Donald Trump's hands as far as actually launching prosecution against some of these people. I'm not telling you that we're going to be seeing perp walks. I'm not buying into this Q nonsense anymore. And honestly, I haven't watched a video pertaining to Q in over a month. This is coming off the top of my head. This is what I've seen, and this is what I think is going to be happening. Just watch the mainstream wave and look in the opposite direction. Because what they're doing right now is they're trying to draw your attention elsewhere because they need something to fill that void. And what's going to happen is they're going to try to brainwash people into believing that this investigation never had anything to do with actual Donald Trump directly colluding with Russia. Rather, they're going to try to tie it to an obstruction of that investigation, which was illegal to begin with. So they're going to try to say Donald Trump tried to prevent Mueller from investigating this nonsense crime that was bought and paid for by the HRC. Literally. This is what's happening. This has become America, my friends. We've been living in a movie for the last 3 years with this whole thing. The question is, what is going to replace it? Because there's going to be something, you and I both know there will be. The question is, what is it, and are we ready for it? And I'm afraid I'm not. Have a nice day.